Sorry for the breaking transmission. I'll just move on to the next one from what we have. Sorry, I'm trying to log in on my iPad. I hope I don't have issues again. All right. So we are on, I've moved on now to federal ministries. I spoke initially before the line went off or the network, I was logged out. I think I noticed something on my Facebook. Whenever I try to share now, I just have issues with sharing. So probably I'll just do the video and then share when I finished, so that I won't have to be having case to logged out. All right. The what, the why, the how to export to Nigeria, part 22, understanding trade environment. And I'm talking about the federal ministries. The ministry in question here are Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Trade and Investment. Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Trade and Investment. These are two very important ministries as far as trade is concerned in Nigeria. For example, Ministry of Finance, for example, is concerned with fiscal policies. And since government make a lot of money from finance, from import, that customs which control the money made in that sector reside under the Ministry of Finance. Even though custom in a way is autonomous, but custom have a reporting line to the Minister of Finance. So the head of the board of custom is the Minister of Finance. The head of the board of custom is Minister of Finance. So you have the Ministry of Finance, and then you have the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Ministry of Finance set the tariff and other port charges and mandate the NCS to enforce the payment of these fees and other trade-related policies of government at the various ports in the country. So tariff and other port charges are mandate of collection of that tariff money of customs. And so customs just implement, like the last time we had the revised import guideline, it was issued by the Federal Ministry of Finance. Customs simply implement what the Federal Ministry of Finance already directed them to do. Because for the Ministry of Finance, basically is to generate and share the money. Get the money in and then share the money. Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Trade and Investment. This agency of government, together with some other ministry, department, and agency, make a case for regulation and control of some of the items being imported or exported out of the country. So, for example, if man have an issue with a particular policy of government, they can push their case through the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Ministry of Trade and Investment is concerned about the industry, it's concerned about import trade, it's concerned about export trade. So they can easily make a case of the reason why they think Federal Ministry of Finance must restrict the import of a particular item, must reduce the tariff on a particular item, must increase the tariff on a particular item. But whatever it is that they want to do, they can get them to do it. They will make a case for that, and that ultimately will be implemented. Sorry. Yeah, that ultimately will be implemented by the Ministry of Trade and Investment. Ministry of Trade and Investment. Then we have NAFDAC, still under, what do you call it now? Under Ministry of Trade and Investment, NAFDAC, then DPR under Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and then NERC under Ministry of Power. There are different other regulatory agencies that are involved one way or the other in the in the importation of items into Nigeria. These agencies are very, very crucial, critical, and important. And I mentioned NAFDAC, all issue around quality actually. NERC, NAFDAC, NAQS, NESRA, SON, Department of Fisheries. All of them are under the federal ministries. All of them are under the federal ministries. So for example, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. If you are importing anything into Nigeria that has to do with power, apart from the fact that you need SON, who ascertain the quality of what you are importing, all manufactured goods imported into Nigeria, apart from arm and ammunition, manufactured goods, apart from arm and ammunition and drugs, you will have to go through SON. So SON will be involved, but because of the nature of the item in question, the person needs permit. That organization needs permit from the federal government. And that will be issued through the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. That will be issued through the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. So if I want to import generator, small generator, big generator, part of generator, if I want to import wires, if I want to import transformers, if I want to import anything that has to do with generation of power, generating set, if I want to import equipment for power grid, if I want to import equipment for GENCOs, generating companies, that's that, what do they call it now? The turbines that they use. Anything that would require, even, what do you call it? What's the name of this? Solar panel. Anything whatsoever they are going to be importing into Nigeria that will be used in generating power either publicly or privately, you definitely need this agency of government. You definitely need this agency of government. It's called the NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. They regulate the GENCOs, they regulate the DISCOs, they regulate the Transmission Company of Nigeria. They regulate everybody involved in the value chain of power in Nigeria. NERC. And that's under the Ministry of Power. That's under the Ministry of Power. Then we have NAFDAC. NAFDAC is the Nigeria National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. US have a version called the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, FDA, NAFDAC. NAFDAC basically help with drugs. And one of the things we'll be doing in this session is to talk about the drug, the item import allowed for import by NAFDAC. Is to talk about item allowed for import by NAFDAC and how NAFDAC give permit to it. How NAFDAC give permit to it. I'll be talking about that. And that I'll be talking about NAFDAC permit for cosmetics. I'll be talking about NAFDAC permit for drug. I'm talking about NAFDAC permit for food. These are all for import. You know, NAFDAC will give you NAFDAC number locally. They give you a permit when you are importing. And they will still give you NAFDAC number for that product. But you need a permit to import into Nigeria. Then we have DPR. Those that want to import anything that has to do with petrol, Either I am importing, for example, PMS, DPK, AGO, kerosene, petrol, diesel, crude, anything that is petroleum product must go through DPR. DPR is called the Department of Petroleum Resources. They will issue a permit. They will issue a permit. Then we have the NAQS. NAQS is Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service. Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service. Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service. If I'm bringing in plant or animal product, I need NAQS. So I'm importing wheat, importing corn, importing vegetable. As long as what I'm bringing in has a tendency to carry pest. As long as what I'm bringing in has a tendency to carry pest, that is enough ground. That is enough ground for me to ensure I engage the Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, who will ensure that item I'm bringing in is not going to bring in another sickness and diseases into Nigeria. Then we have another one called the National, that's under Agric. DPR is under Ministry of Petroleum. NAFDAC is under Ministry of Health. Then Nigeria National Environmental Standard and Regulation Enforcement Agency is called NESREA. That will be under the Ministry of Environment. National Environmental Standard and Regulation Enforcement Agency, NESREA. If I'm bringing in used products, especially used electronics products or electronic equipment, I will need a permit from NESREA. You know, used electronics is very commonly imported into Nigeria. A lot. Used electronics. Some are for car, some are for TV set. In fact, so much TV set, used TV set in this country. Used TV set. All the plenty. All the plenty. Used TV set. A lot of them. A lot. Used TV set. So, basically saying that bringing those items into Nigeria, you need a permit. Then son, I've told you already that all manufactured goods, except food, drug, some chemicals, used products, military wares, medical equipment, most or all manufactured products apart from those ones are regulated by SON. And I'll be spending a whole session discussing the processes involved in SON in Nigeria, the standard Organization of Nigeria processes. So I won't be talking about that here. I'm just telling you about what they regulate, what you will need them to, what you will need from them, or you will need them to give you if you must do that business in Nigeria. Fishery, Department of Federal Ministry of Agriculture. That will be frozen fish. Frozen fish. Frozen fish. Frozen fish. Anything fish. You will need Department of Fishery under the Ministry of Agriculture to give a permit. You will need a Department of Fishery under the Ministry of Agriculture to give a permit for you to bring in fish products into Nigeria. I will go over it again as I round off. Remember, I'm talking about federal ministry agencies. I've spoken about... Okay, no, there are two more that I've not spoken about. And that is MPA and NIMASA. MPA and NIMASA. MPA and NIMASA. But before I talk about that, let me just run through this one just because of time. I've spoken about Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, the fact that they are interested in policies of trade, fiscal policy of trade. They make a case and work with Ministry of Trade and in Finance, work with Ministry of Finance to ensure that any policy that is implemented does not destroy trade and at the same time does not affect local manufacturers to be able to do the business. And the Federal Ministry of Finance itself is the one that issued the guideline, and they issue the guideline to generate revenue. And when they issue that guideline, they give it to customs, and customs basically run with what they have given them. Whatever the ministry gives customs run with it. Because customs, in running with it, customs is able to also generate income for the country or prevent the importation of items that would have otherwise destroyed the local market. Prohibited item, for example. Anything that will be on that list is going to be determined by Ministry of Finance, but with input from other relevant agencies that are like Ministry of Trade, Industry, Trade and Investment. Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. So basically work hand in hand. But I now mention other government agencies that issue permits, different forms and types of permits that have been issued in Nigeria. I mentioned Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, who will issue permit for power-related equipment. I also mentioned National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, otherwise called NAFDAC, which will help with regulation of food and drug. I also talked about DPR, Department of Petroleum Resources, who is responsible for petroleum product importation, any form of petroleum product importation. Then Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service, who will give a permit for plant, animal, and aquatic life. Anything you are bringing in, be it plant, be it animal, and aquatic life, they will need to give you a permit to bring them in. Then we talk about the National Environmental Standard and Regulation Enforcement Agency under the Ministry of Environment, and this ministry will issue permit for you to import used electrical electronic equipment, UEEE, used electronic equipment. Then we have Standard Organization of Nigeria, SON, that also issue permit. They issue permit for all manufactured items apart from used items. So now SON will not issue permit for used electronics, but SON will issue permit for used automobile. SON does not issue permit for used manufactured goods except automobile. And lastly, Fishery Department, Federal Ministry of Agric, and that also issue permit for frozen fish. Let's talk about other government agencies that are involved in the rendering one service or the other to importer in Nigeria. We have the Nigeria Port Authority. This agency develop and operate ports and harbor, provide safe and navigable channel, offer cargo handling and storage services, and maintain port facilities and equipment. As a matter of fact, MPA is the landlord of the port. MPA is the landlord of the port. What does MPA do? Number one, they are the one that operate the port and harbor. They are the one that operate the port and harbor. Operate the port and harbor. Operate the port and harbor. Then provide safe and navigable channels. You know, when you hear that some big vessels cannot enter some port in Nigeria because the channel is too shallow, those big, you know, when you see a ship, the part of the ship you are not seeing is so big that you don't even know sometimes. You know, the first time I entered a ship, it was like a warehouse. It's like I'm inside a warehouse. All those ones you see outside on deck, they are on the decking. There are some other one on board, right inside, like warehouse. You don't even see those ones at all. You don't even see those ones at all. And those are part of the containers that the ship is carrying. And they are just, it's just like a warehouse. As you see everywhere full of load. You see everywhere full of load. And that's the way it looks like. Remember, we are still discussing AFCFTA, the what, the why, and the how. And today we are discussing understanding the trade environment. And we are looking at the federal ministries, departments, and agencies in the trade environment. Federal ministries, departments, and agencies in the trade environment. So I was talking about the fact that MPA helped to ensure safe channels. So they dredge the channel. Safe and navigable channel. They also offer cargo handling and storage services. Even though we have a lot of other private organizations doing that today, the terminal operators. So they have storage, handling, cargo handling and storage services, and lastly, they maintain the facility and equipment. They are the ones that maintain the facility and equipment. And of course, they charge all the terminals, operators, and importer and exporter. They have so many charges, especially on the import. Then we have NIMASA. NIMASA is Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. This is one of the major agencies generating funds at the port in dollars. This agency carry out its own maritime safety and maritime security operators and seafarers standard training and certification. You know what? You know, for airports, you have what is called the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, and Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency work more like, in my opinion actually, work more like NCAA at the airport. NCAA at the airport. This agency carry out maritime safety. Maritime safety. Maritime safety. Then maritime security. Security of our waterways, securing our waterways, fighting piracy. So they always have partnership with naval officers to fight piracy, to fight piracy, to fight piracy. NIMASA, to fight piracy. Maritime security operation and seafarer standard. A seafarer standards training and certification. If you are going to be a seafarer, that's someone that worked on ship, on sea. They do training for you. They certify you. They ensure that just the way NCAA also do for air hostess, pilots, and people on the airport that are in the air, same and NIMASA does for, although NCAA does not protect the airspace, it's Air Force that does that. But they try to ensure the airspace is safe anyway. Anyway, don't let me go beyond my boundary. Let me talk about what I know. Alright, that's NIMASA. NIMASA. I think I'm done with all the government agencies. The only thing left now that I've not spoken about is is the banks, the private sector operators. That's the one I'll talk about tomorrow. That's the private sector operators. That's the importer, the banks, the custom license agent. The custom license. That's the private sector operator. That's what I'm talking about tomorrow. Private sector operator. Immediately I finish that, I will then move on to talk about some innovations of customs. Then I will talk about the foreign exchange forms in Nigeria. Foreign exchange forms in Nigeria. Before I go deep into the import process. Thank you very much for listening again this evening. My name is Delayim Impo, and this Import Export platform, Facebook Live from Trading Better Academy. See you tomorrow morning, and have a good evening. Bye for now.